This evening on Nationwide, a special programme focusing on the attractions of Kilkenny City. We find out why so many tourists come to visit. We take a look at how the whole community is behind the Keep Kilkenny Tidy campaign, and we see the new statue commemorating Kilkenny's years of success on the field of hurling. The feedback from Fáilte Ireland showed that people wanted more art in public places. So what did the council do? Well, they invited artists to submit plans for a sculpture that would honour the main men of Kilkenny, the hurlers. And although the Cats lost out to Tip in this year's All-Ireland hurling final, well, they are still the most successful hurling team in the country. And there's a lot of people hereabouts who feel that this statue is way overdue. Helen McInerney has the story.
It starts with an idea, then a sketch, followed by a model of the proposed sculpture. That's the process which resulted in sculptor Barry Rafter winning the commission to produce a Kilkenny hurling sculpture.
I kind of really wanted this job because Kilkenny's the home of stone carving and that, so I really wanted to win this competition.
Once Barry won the competition, he then had to choose a suitable piece of stone.
You just have to get a stone with no flaws in it, no cracks. It's cemented down over millions and millions of years, so there's no flaws in it whatsoever. So you have to get a stone in certain beds, it has to be going in the right direction. You have to extract it from that bed. See, people think you can get a stone in the field or stone underneath the ground. They have to cut into the rock face, cut it away from the rock face, bring it away, and then bring it up to saws, trim it all to shape, make it square, and then bring it here. So the stone is very expensive because the process that goes into it, it's a lot of work. I chose it from Paulstown in Kilkenny. The stone was so large, I'd call it a freak stone because it's so big, it's so tall. It was very hard to get the stone. As I said, it took me a full year, and I was debating over what to do, make the stone smaller or change the design. It was just going on for so long, so they finally got one. They actually got one. There was a crack in it after sawing it, and then they got a second one. They goes, look, this is the last time we're going to try and get a stone. So they got the stone and went with that one.
It was a year in the finding. Then, once the stone was in position in Barry's workshop in Ennis, the artist began to sculpt.
It's basically scaling it up, so I would draw squares on the model, and they would say be maybe 10% the size of the actual stone itself. So then I would transfer those squares onto the stone, and then I can kind of roughly figure out in the stone where something is. So it might be 8 squares in, 5 squares deep. What it does, it gives me the actual rough shape of the whole thing in squares, and then I kind of discard the model and kind of do it freestyle. So in all 3 years, a year for the stone and 2 years carving this, but this is just, you're making 3 figures. Most people, I suppose, for a statue like this would be 1 figure, and it might take them up to a year, but 3 figures, and it's so intricate, the way they're all meeting, that's what made it so tricky. All the junction points in it was what made it so hard.
Making your living as a sculptor is not an easy road, but for Barry, stone carving is in his DNA.
My ancestors were all stone cutters, and they've been mentioned in a few books and stuff like that. That's what kind of got me started, interested in it. But my father died when I was young, and on Graveyard Sunday, I used to go down and see the crosses my ancestors used to make, and they were fantastic, and the carving involved in them, and kind of started to get me interested in it, and then my mother kind of pushed me in that direction because she knew I was good in art. So that's what got me into stonework, and then trying to keep the family name going, the Rafter name going, and that's why my son is here today, to keep that name going. It's a very hard job to make a living in, because like any artist, like any bronze, painter or whatever, it's, especially in Ireland with all the cuts, it's very hard to make a living in it. But if you persist and you're good enough, you can make a living in it. But it is hard going, it's hard work.
Barry's first big sculpture was for the Mullingar bypass.
The Midlands has a reputation for turf cut and stuff like that, so it was basically a farmer and his horse bringing the turf home. So that was the first one I done, and then I done one here in Ennis for the Sisters of Mercy. That was in Carrara marble, and there's a lot of history behind Carrara Marble, as you know. And then I did one for Maurice Davin, co-founder of the GAA. That was in Kilkenny Limestone as well. So that was my most recent before I did this. So I kind of move into the GAA sphere now.
Many of Barry's sculptures are dotted around his hometown of Ennis, including his Market Day sculpture. Barry has completed both figurative and abstract commissions.
Figurative is like what all the old masters would have done, so that's what I'm into. And I like studying anatomy and form and life drawn, all these things are related to it. Like life drawn is the highest discipline, so life drawn would be related to this. You're doing the figure the whole time, so yeah, that's my interest. I had a feeling they would go for obviously power, you know, the battle, the struggle, all that. So I went for, as you can see, 3 players going for the ball, 2 Kilkenny, 1 opposing. And I wanted to get the battle, the fight in. And it's kind of like a spiraling kind of design, and it's all stepped upwards.
Three years on and the sculpture is finished. Now it's time to move at the 170 kilometres from Ennis to Kilkenny City, a process that can be nerve-wracking. But it all went without a hitch, and the sculpture was put in place by the River Nore, ready for the unveiling ceremony.
The intensity, the physicality, the whole thing, you see, the madness of the whole thing is there, and it just depicts the game of hurling. It's a place where people come and, you know, young children, boys and girls walk down there by the Bank River, they bring their hurls and the sliders with them and they poke around, and you have that monument as well there reminding that, you know, this is, you know, that's of what people have done over the years. And also I think it should, you know, remind us all of us that we have continued to just promote and develop and inspire the young kids to continue to play the game.
And will those young kids, will they genuflect in front of it?
Perhaps, yeah.
I think it has exceeded my expectations. It's absolutely beautiful.
And
I see the unveiling and I think it's a wonderful unveiling and, you know, probably long overdue, but it's very welcome. And great recognition to Kilkenny and its hurlers. Yeah.
And what do you think of the sculpture itself?
I think that it's a wonderful piece of work. Absolutely wonderful piece of work, yeah, no doubt.
I think it's lovely, and it's made of local limestone, which is most important, and highly overdue. It's great tribute to Gay Hurl we had in Kilkenny down to the years.
3 years since I started it, a year getting the stone, 2 years making it. Now if somebody's looking for another project, I'm available for work. And there it is.
A wonderful piece of public art that's bound to inspire even more Kilkenny youngsters to emulate those hurling heroes. Well, now we're going to take a break, but don't go away, because when we come back we'll be finding out how Nationwide inspired some Kilkenny women to take to the water. We'll talk to you again in a couple of minutes.